Welcome back, my friends, to the show that, of course, never, ever ends. Right, as you know, folks, this show this week is all about me finding fun in the weekly news. Well, there's one thing that everyone seems to be talking about now is the sinking of the superyacht Davidson and what caused it to capsize. And of course, the conspiracy theorists are going mental by the fact that the owner of the superyacht had just finished a huge fraud trial in America where he got acquitted against all odds. And then to make matters even more scary, or for some people more fun around the campfire, an associate of his was killed in a hit and run just days before. You know, this is the guy that was in court with him, and both got acquitted, and now they're both gone, sadly, as I'm reading this today. Their bodies are still missing. One of the young ladies is still missing, and they're bringing people back from that ship. So what actually happened? And do, you know, if I'm going to do this program about the news, I'm certainly not going to make fun of this, but here's my version of events, that what could have happened, I think. Now, you've got to remember, I've got a yacht master's certificate, and I'm qualified to drive a boat about that big. You know, I don't know how big she was. And, well, what happened? Was it at anchor? You've got to ask yourself, was she at anchor in 150 feet? I don't think you anchor in 150 feet, do you, really? Maybe she picked up a buoy. That's the word round the campfire. And I have to say, to be right off the top here, I know nothing about sailing. I'm a powerboat. I'm 2 engines, and that's me. I was out yesterday in a force 5 to 6 wind, bloody great waves, and I saw yachts. Listen to this. I was ashore, right? Me and Tash and her mum were ashore, and waiting for the tide to turn. And I was watching these bloody great waves and these yachts ploughing into them. It looked really, really good, but the yachts were going against the wind, and I couldn't get my fucking head round that. You know, there were yachts doing 1,000 miles an hour heading into wind, and I think they call it tacking, which means that if the wind's coming this way, you know, that's your sail, right? So the wind comes that way, you go that way, I get that. But what if the wind's coming that way and you want to go that way? And someone described it to me like it's squeezing, the hull of a yacht is like squeezing a bit of soap, like that, squeezing a bit of wet soap. And it goes forward. So the wind hits that sail there, right? But it's going to hit it there, which puts the boat that way. And then they have to turn round, they have to go about, and then go that way, and then go that way. So they go along in a zigzag. Well, and it's called tacking. Well, with wind and seas like that, I would have been fucking cacking. Never mind that. Anyway. Me, being a sensible captain, I waited till the wind and the tide were together. Which means the bad thing about a sea, if the wind's blowing one way and the tide is going against it, you get these big gophers standing up, and it's awful. So I waited until the tide had changed, I think low tide at 6 o'clock, and then jumped in and headed back. But there were still 1.6 metre waves on our stern. So the wind was coming from our stern, the waves are coming on our stern. So basically, this old boat, she surfed all the way home. And all right, you know I live in an alcoholic village with a sailing problem called the Hamble. It's fantastic. And I was in the pub last night listening to Steve, a brilliant guitarist. If you're ever in the Hamble on a Wednesday night, go to the King and Queen. It's pizza night. They're cheap as chips. And this is a guitarist. I've never seen anything like it. He's got a little finger on his hand, bigger than my... Well, I won't go into that. But anyway, so let's just think about the talk round the campfire, because they're all yachty people, and let's think what could have happened to this boat and the tragic events. Okay, so I was informed that during this very, very quick storm that turned up, there were 40 Mayday calls put out. And I was also led to believe that the storm took down the mast, which is apparently the highest mast in the world, which caused the boat to capsize and sink within 90 seconds. But then Robert Garofalo tells me he read some reports today that the mast and the ship are intact at the bottom of 150 feet of water. Well, how did it happen so quickly? They talk about the crew had left the hatches open. Why would they do that? Why would they leave the hatches open? Was it too hot? Well, a boat like that's got air conditioning. So what must be asked, and of course, I don't know the details of this yet, but I'm telling you, the Marine Investigation Department will go through this like shit through a goose. And they'll ask the question, and people are asking the question now, and I don't know the answer to this. Of course I don't know the answer to this, I'm just commentating on it, is how come a lot of the crew survived and most of the passengers perished? You know what I mean? It does. And there's also the sinister thing about a hit and run. Is a hit and run and the sinking of a super yacht joined after a fraud case where the chances of being acquitted are less than 5%? The answer is, it's coincidence. It's got to be. I can understand someone altering the facts of a court case. I can get that. The answer is still a coincidence, because if someone can do that, and then it's easy to run someone over in a car, but how the fuck do you conjure up a tornado that's going to sink a boat that big? It's quite amazing. You have to think to yourself, firstly, how sad it is and how quick life can end. And I hope all this conspiracy theorists can just push it to one side and just wait for the marine investigators to do their job. And what about those divers, that grisly job they had to do? That's the sea for you. That is the sea for you. This is the same storm that's going on now that I got caught up in yesterday. Today it's blowing like an hooligan outside there. There's got to be, I don't know, the only good thing about this, I'm not talking about the sinking, is the people will stop coming across the channel. How many people have come across in this lovely weather? There's nice weather next week. How many people are going to come across? And what are the Labour Party, our government, doing about it? Absolutely fucking nothing. What are they doing about it? Well, they're just moaning about the Conservatives. They're now going on about Nigel Farage. He earns so much money because he works on GB News and he does this thing where he wishes people happy birthday and gets paid every time he does that. And they're just jealous. They just say, oh, never mind all the things that we're fucking our country up with. What about Nigel Farage? How dare he earn this money? How dare he write this and do that? And fucking ridiculous. Well, that's what the newspaper, I just pick up the newspapers. I don't even try and make jokes anymore. I just read it out. I've been a bit busy this morning because I've been getting myself ready for a phone call from Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, apparently she's kicked out that geezer with the beard. She's kicked him into touch and she's on the loose and on the lookout. And I think she's a fabulous looking woman. On top of that, she's got 400 million in the bank, which would help. So I've told Liz Hurley, my next girlfriend, that if anything develops, I'll send her a text. And meanwhile, this girlfriend, Natasha, she's informed me that if I mention any of this shit on Ustream or YouTube, she's going to kill me. So the things I do for you viewers. Now, the other thing is, of course, before we go over to dear old Ustream, so what normally happens now is I do this bit for YouTube and we put it on YouTube, okay? Harley snips it up and does bits and pieces. And then later on, we do it's a much bigger version, then goes on Ustream later on in the day. But what we're going to do now, we're going to put them on at the same time. So you Ustream members don't have to, if you're impatient to see what this fucking idiot's going to say, you can go straight to Ustream and watch it. But if you're not a member, you can go to YouTube. And please sign up. The things I could do with some more things. You know, it takes a lot of money to run a TV station. And at the moment, we were talking about all this bit up here. We're pulling it all down and building a little concert venue because we're going to start doing some stand-up comedy. Be bloody marvellous. We get a little audience. Now, quickly before we go, stories are like buses, aren't they? There's sort of a feeding frenzy. Once someone says a phone box has been found on Mars, there'll be a phone box found on the moon and something else, and a police box found, you know, somewhere else. They're all similar. And the latest ones I'm reading are about the Turin Shroud. Was that the cloth that was wrapped around Jesus' body? Well, there's been many theories, and one of them being that it wasn't around Jesus' body. It was a sheet wrapped around the first Knights Templar master, Hugo de Payens, where he was tortured. That's what they say. Having said that, it might have been Jacques de Morlaix, the last of the Knights Templar, but the old brain's going. Did you know, for instance, that not a lot of people know this? Friday the 13th is unlucky. And do you know why? Well, it was on that day, Friday the 13th of October, that a wicked Philip the Fair, King of France, and a dodgy Pope pounced upon the order of the poor Knights of Christ, known as the Knights Templar. Yeah, so the King of France apparently owed them a job lot of money, and he was jealous of their popularity and their power and their fighting prowess. So him and the Pope got together, they put a philology bit together, and of course they accused the Knights Templar of heresy. Well, I don't know what heresy means. It means you don't like God. And devil worship, which got the Pope on side, of course, when he wasn't busy. Anyway, so the Knights Templar were pounced on and arrested. But the great thing is that when the King of France army got to La Rochelle on the coast there to pounce upon the Knights Templar fleet and its treasures, it had miraculously fucked off and disappeared. Some of the fleet went to America 100 years before Columbus was supposed to discover it. And another lot went to, guess where? Scotland. And if you want to find out more about this, get yourself a book called The Hiram Key. It's a fantastic, fantastic book and might turn you on to a little bit of history. I don't think... well, sailing to America is one thing thousands of years ago. What was the name of the ships of Columbus? Nina, Pinta, Santa Maria, and they had the cross of the Knights Templar there. Well, I don't know if we get many boats across today because the sea is up, but if you notice, these boats are getting bigger and bigger with up 50 people at a time getting in these boats. So what's the new Labour government doing about it? Nothing. It would seem that they just want them to come. And of course, every asylum seeker that is granted asylum, and which they will be, won't they? Every asylum seeker that's granted asylum will be another vote for Labour. And what is His Majesty's opposition, the Conservative Party, doing about this? They don't seem to be opposing very much, do they? They're just, I don't know, biding their time, thinking, oh, we've got 5 years of this shit. We better start thinking about how to repair the country. And it's going to need repairing, don't you worry about that. The first thing they should do is sit down with Lee Anderson and Nigel and have a chat. Have a chat, sort something else before the Carlton Club is empty. And lastly, before we go over to Ustream, spare a thought for poor Katie Price. Here she is, look. Do you know she's had her face lifted so many times she's now got a hairy chest? Does she look in the mirror and think she looks all right? She looks like she's been moulded out of a bucket. Yeah, I quite like her. It's sad to see her. I don't know if I'd like her now. I wouldn't want to sit next to her in the sun in case she melted and dripped on my arm and burnt me or something like that. Well, there you go, folks. That's the little bit of sad news. I hope they get to the bottom of how that boat perished, and I'm sure there's no conspiracy there at all. We just spare a thought for the family and friends of the people that perished on that lovely super yacht. Never know what's around the corner, and the sea is a powerful thing. Me, I shit myself. Any waves above 3 foot, I don't fucking go out. Sod that. Okay, over to Ustream. Let's have a natter. You can get a chance to see my brand new show here on Ustream before anybody else. Yes, my latest concert up in Great Yarmouth. The greatest hits of Jim Davidson in the Swimming Against the Tide tour. There's been no mention of a disabled games. Now, I wonder why that is. Have they all got better? Anyone from the north of England? Well, f*** off back there. Coming soon, here on Ustream.